Ukrainian defense forces are holding back the enemy in the Avdiivka direction and continue to expand their foothold in the Kherson direction. Over the past day, 53 combat engagements took place, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In the Bakhmut direction, our soldiers repelled 3 enemy attacks near Bohdanivka and Andriivka, Donetsk region. In the Marinka direction, our troops are holding back the enemy in the areas of Marinka and Novomykhailivka in the Donetsk region, where they repelled 6 attacks. Meanwhile, Russia's losses in the war in Ukraine as of Friday morning amounted to 850 occupants, bringing the total number of Russian army losses since the beginning of the invasion to 357,520. In addition, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed 13 tanks, 36 UAVs, and 26 artillery systems, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. At the same time, the Ukrainian Defense Forces continue to inflict losses in manpower and equipment on the occupation forces, depleting the enemy along the entire front line. Over the past day, our aviation struck 17 areas of concentration of personnel, weapons, and military equipment, and 2 enemy anti-aircraft missile systems. Missile troops hit 2 areas of concentration of personnel, weapons, and military equipment, 11 artillery pieces, 2 control points, 2 electronic warfare stations, 2 anti-aircraft missile systems, and 6 ammunition depots. Decades ago, Russian troops learned the hard way to ride on top of, rather than inside, their flimsy and flammable infantry fighting vehicles. Now they're learning the hard way why riding on top of an IFV is dangerous too. Ukraine's explosives-laden drones are barreling into exposed Russian troops perched atop their tracked BMP and wheeled BTR vehicles, blowing off heads and limbs and sending burning bodies and parts of bodies flying. It didn't take long for Russian, Soviet soldiers to discover that their IFVs were death traps. The Soviet and Russian army's standard fighting vehicle, the BMP, lacks the heavy armor and clever shaping that protects the best new Western-style infantry vehicles from rockets, mines, and artillery fragments. After a few BMPs, each carrying 3 crew and 8 infantry, ran over mines in Afghanistan during the Soviet war there in the 1980s. The infantry took to riding on top of the vehicles instead of inside them. Better to risk bullets and shell fragments than to wait for a mine to turn a thin-skinned BMP into a crematorium. But technological developments since 2022 have put the infantry in a cruel bind. 22 months into the wider war, 2-pound FPV drones, each hauling a pound of explosives, are everywhere all the time along the 600-mile front line. The drones slaughter exposed infantry clinging to the outsides of their vehicles. One recent video of a Ukrainian FPV strike might be the most horrifying. On December 24th, the Ukrainian 501st Marine Battalion posted a video depicting an FPV strike on a Russian infantry squad riding on top of a BMP rolling toward the Ukrainian bridgehead in Krieg on the Russian-held left bank of the Dnipro River. In the split second before the drone strikes, 2 Russian soldiers notice it. But it's too late for them to do anything to stop the coming blast. The U.S. Army warns against riding on top of an IFV. By riding on, not in vehicles, the infantry gives up its best protection, one U.S. Army field manual explained. But that's easy for the Americans to say. Their M2 IFVs offer good protection against mines. Russian BMPs and BTRs don't protect against mines. So Russian infantry now are in an impossible situation. Traveling inside a fighting vehicle means risking death from immolation. Traveling outside a fighting vehicle means risking dismemberment by an explosive drone. This is the heart-stopping moment a Russian soldier is blown up inspecting a Ukrainian landmine disguised as rubbish. The footage, captured by a drone nearby, follows the hapless soldier as he bends down to examine what appears to be trash on a snow-covered road in Ukraine. The Russian soldier gets a nasty surprise after kneeling down and touching the item. The so-called rubbish turns out to be a Ukrainian landmine in disguise, instantly blowing the soldier up. Ash and black smoke stain the snowy patch where the soldier was last seen. It comes after Ukrainian warplanes damaged a Russian ship moored in the Black Sea off Crimea 22 months into the war, bolstering Ukrainian morale after battlefield disappointments and doubts about the future of Western aid. Russia then launched what military observers read as retaliatory strikes, firing almost 50 Shahed drones at targets in Ukraine and shelled a train station where more than 100 civilians were gathered to catch a train to Kyiv, Ukrainian officials said on Wednesday. The barrages killed at least 5 people and knocked out power in most of the southern city of Kherson. The Kremlin's forces launched an artillery and drone bombardment of the Kherson region just as some 140 civilians were waiting for a train at the region's capital city of the same name, according to Ukrainian Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko. The shelling killed 1 policeman and injured 2 other police officers, as well as 2 civilians. The attack on the Kherson region and its capital hit residential areas and a mall, as well as striking the power grid, leaving around 70% of households in Kherson city without electricity during the winter cold, Regional Governor Oleksandr Prokudin said. Targeting energy infrastructure was also a Russian tactic last winter, when it tried to break Ukrainian spirit by denying them heating and running water.